Alright, this will be my review of Iron Man 3, the latest in the Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. And I'm gonna spoil things. This isn't gonna be a spoiler-free review, so if you haven't seen the film, don't watch this review yet. Come back after you watch the film. So, if you're here, I'm assuming you don't either mind spoilers or you've seen the movie and you just wanted to hear my review on it. I'm gonna say right off the bat, very, very disappointing film. Now, I just want to say right off the bat, I heard about what happened to the Mandarin in here. I heard about it. I didn't hear exactly what happened, but people were saying, the people that saw the film, because it was released like overseas first, and they were like, man, there's some stuff that happened to the Mandarin. People were posting it on Facebook and stuff like that. They didn't post what happened, but I was just like, really? Can you guys not do that? This is why they should just release movies all together as one. The only people who should see movies before everybody else is critics and, people like, high-paid reviewers like Jeremy James and people like that. Those are the only people that should be allowed to, see a movie before it's released. The regular audience, everybody else should be able to see it together when it's released. Just wanted to get that off my chest because that's very, very annoying. I hate when people... It's not a spoiler, but they shouldn't have even indicated that something like that happened to the Mandarin. So I tried to stay away from comic book movie, Newsarama, CBR, any comic book site. I stayed away from all of that because I didn't want to know exactly what happened to the Mandarin. So there's that. Now let's get into the film itself. The film itself is basically Iron Man 2 to the nth degree. There's a lot of witty dialogue. There's a lot of comedy. There's some cool action scenes. There's some cool display of Tony's different armors, but they don't really say what they are in the film. In order to know what they are, you gotta read about it online and stuff like that. But the film itself is, to me, a big missed opportunity, just like Iron Man 2 was. Now, I was really liking this film in the beginning. I was liking the character stuff. I like how they flashed back to 1990 and, stuff like that. I was like, that's cool. I like that a lot. We get to see some more character development and some more history with Tony, before he becomes Iron Man. And I really like that. I thought everybody looked, great. They looked like they were from the 90s, especially Jon Favreau with the mullet. I was like, okay, that's cool. That's slick. I like that. Very well done. One of the best openings I've actually ever seen. And then we get to the next part of the film, and Tony's building armor. He's working on his new suit, and I'm like, that's cool. And they start, talking about other things, and then the Mandarin starts doing his thing. I'm like, okay, I'm liking this. I'm liking where this film is going. It seems like it's going to be a completely different film from Iron Man 2. It's not going to be so many jokes and one-liners, but there's going to be a little bit more of a serious tone with this film. And then the film has this weird tone. Now, somebody said that Shane Black's, he likes to do his, the way he likes to do movies is comedy, punchline, setup. I think it's comedy, setup, and then action. Comedy, setup, and action. Right? And I'm rolling with this at first. I'm rolling with this tone. I'm not really liking it so much. I'm like, can we stop with the too much of the comedy? I'm like, can we just get back to the tone you had at first? And the film just keeps doing this throughout. And there's not a lot of action in this movie at all. If you're expecting some cool, there's some cool action scenes in here, but there's not a lot of great action. The only thing I can say about the action that's really more improved than the other two is there's more armors. That's about it. There's more armors that show up. There's a couple of great cinematic camera angles, I should say. Maybe, what the cinematographers did with the different suits and whatnot. But it's really not that impressive to me. It's okay. But I was, from the trailers, I was like, man, they're really going to go ham with this. They're really going to go in with this film. And it doesn't. like the final scene. I'm skipping around here. This review is going to be all over the place, but the final fight scene I thought was kind of eh. And Guy Pearce, the villain, he was all right. Now, when they introduced the extremists, I thought we were going to get the extremist armor like they did in the comics. I was like, ooh, this is going to be interesting. And it's not that. Basically, the whole film is Guy Pearce wants to get with Pepper, and Tony got with Pepper, and Guy Pearce is pissed because he didn't get with Pepper. That's basically, essentially, the plot, if you will, in this film. And I don't like that. Now, Pepper is better in this film. She's not as annoying and nagging as she was in Iron Man 2. She actually, she does some really cool stuff in here. I was very impressed with her character, her development. But there's a point in the final fight scene where Tony's fighting Guy Pearce, and Pepper basically falls to her death, or it seems like it. And I was like, woo, now we're going somewhere. I'm liking this. Like, I'm liking this movie again. I'm liking that maybe Pepper might be dead, and Tony would have to deal with that in the next films. And no, she's alive. Somehow the extremist virus got in her, and she was able to survive that fall until the explosion. And she pretty much is the one that saves the day. Which I'm fine with that, but again, not all that impressive to me. Now, let me talk about the Mandarin. The Mandarin, what they did with the Mandarin, I'm kind of iffy on. Like, I don't hate it. I don't hate that. I think it was kind of genius. The whole, we're going to make him an actor, and then we're going to set him up as this bad guy in the first part of the film, but then it turns out he's an actor and stuff like that. That was cool. But again, they played up the comedy too much for me. I'm like, okay, you've already shown me what you've done with the Mandarin. Okay, you pretty much don't like the character. And I heard that Shane Black didn't want to use the Mandarin. I heard that the Mandarin was going to be like an organization. But yeah, Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin is not the Mandarin. He's just an actor pretending to be the Mandarin. And Guy Pearce is the Mandarin, as he says. I've been the Mandarin this entire time. Because there's a point where his shirt is off, and he has like dragons on his chest. I'm like, no, you are not the Mandarin, buddy. People were saying that this is going to be more comic booky. I was hoping that, they were going to talk about, the rings and stuff like that the Mandarin has. I'm like, cool, they're going to, talk about more of the cosmic stuff. Because I think his rings are more of like they're cosmic from an alien race. So, we're going to touch on some stuff. Because you can go far out with this franchise. I mean, Tony fought with the Avengers. You don't have to be all realistic. And I'm tired of people saying that this film was too comic booky like the other two films weren't. They were very comic booky. They were very out of the realm of reality. Even the first film, it wasn't that grounded. So I'm getting sick of people saying that. But, I was hoping that they would talk about the rings with the Mandarin, but none of that. It was just, the whole thing was the extremist was the enemy. And the way this film ends, it seems like Tony's not going to be able to do much of anything anymore. Because he pretty much destroys his armor because it's Christmas, and he pretty much destroys his armor for a display for Pepper. I'm like, okay, I don't know what they did that for, but whatever. I guess they just wanted to show off some cool armors, and then let's destroy him. Yeah, I didn't really care for that. I'm pretty sure it was done for a reason. I'm pretty sure this isn't the end of the Iron Man franchise, but they make it seem like it. But, I love what they did with Tony in here. I love the character development they were going with him. And, I like the ideas that they set up. This film had a lot of really interesting ideas and a lot of references to the comics. And, of course, Stan Lee was in here. There was a reference to the Avengers. I like that they acknowledged that, but they didn't overdo it. And it was an Iron Man film. That's one I will give this over the second film. It was an Iron Man film. It didn't feel like a setup for Avengers 2 like Iron Man 2 felt, in my opinion. But this film, the ideas that they present, they don't really capitalize on them. I was hoping that the film would have a little bit more of a darker tone. It really doesn't. I was hoping that Tony would have to lose something very, very, very important to him and then gain something even more important. That really doesn't happen. Uh, Everything's just a-okay at the end. Tony. I guess the lesson he learns at the end of this movie is be more patient. I don't know what they were trying to say with the lesson with this film, but it didn't really feel well thought out, and I thought it was really, really a missed opportunity for this film to go a more darker route and just play itself a little bit more seriously. I'm not saying it's got to be like Chris Nolan serious, but play itself a little bit more seriously. Like I was hoping that the tone would be like the Extremis comic book that Warren Ellis wrote. We could have had that tone in the comics, but they played up on the comedy again, and I thought the comedy in this film was just overdone. That's just my opinion. So yeah, I think it's an okay film. It's got some cool fight scenes, not a lot of it, but there's some cool stuff in here. There's some interesting ideas, but overall, I'm not compelled to go see this movie again. I don't plan on seeing it again. Like, this isn't like, oh man, like the Avengers, where I'm like, okay, I gotta see that again. It's one of those films where you're gonna be like, oh, okay, whatever, right? It's not, it's not forgetful, but it's very mediocre to me. Like I said, I don't plan on seeing it again. I've seen it once. That's enough for me. I don't know where they can go with this franchise, but I really hope that they really take a step back and they look at these films and say, let's do something different with Tony. Let's not play up the comedy too much. Let's try to do a really serious character arc for this character and have him grow. I mean, there was a character arc for Tony, but it was like everything at the end I just felt like was the same as when it began. That's just my personal opinion. Oh yeah, Rhodey in here, he was alright. Like he was played up as comedy. War Machine. Rhodes, I didn't hate what they did with Rhodes, but it was just okay to me. It wasn't spectacular. I felt like he was pretty much the same character as he was in the first film. He didn't really grow to me as well. This was a good opportunity to really get down with Tony's greatest villain and didn't really do it. Just didn't do it. So I'm going to give the film 7 blood drops out of 10. For me, that's like a fair. It's not god-awful. It's not spectacular. It's in the middle. It's okay. So I'll leave this review off. You guys tell me what you thought about the film. I know this review was all over the place, and I'm going to have to do a rant on the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies and just talk about my problems with them. I've already talked about the villains and, how I'm disappointed in the villains so far in these movies. And it applies here as well. So I'm going to do a rant on that, and that'll be it. Bloody days, gory nights. Catch you guys on the flip side. I'm out. Peace.